In the next few minutes, I'll take you through a practical example of how the sales baseline can help improve the sales and marketing organization. I've entitled this presentation, How Sales Baseline Saved Our Sales Force, and you'll see why in just a moment or two. As a quick overview, you will be asked to respond to statements in a strongly disagree, strongly agree format. And then the categories you will weigh by most important to least important. It's critical to know that that's not going to be done on a 1 to 10 scale, because too often you can look at something and say, well, that's an 8, and sales process is an 8, and prospecting qualification is an 8, and marketing is, well, it's a 7. And you don't get the type of differentiation between what's really important that you need. So we ask you to force rank the categories based on most to least importance, and you can choose any time frame you'd like. Typically it's either a short-term result in that you're looking for making an impact in the next 90 to 120 days, or you might be looking longer term, 12 to 18 months. But it's very important, as the multiple participants take the assessment, that you're very clear under what time frame they should weight the importance of the categories. This is an example of what the statements will look like for market planning. You'll have the statement here, and then you have choices between not applicable, don't know, and then strongly disagree, disagree, all the way up to agree. And points are calculated based upon whether you strongly disagree or agree, and that in essence is what creates your sales performance index as a whole. Here in step 2 are the results of the force ranking of each category. You can see here that this is the consolidation of all participants of the assessment, and according to all participants, the number 1 issue is staff performance, number 6 compensation, number 11 sales training. Here are some of the examples of the sales baseline deliverables. Here is what we call the one-page scorecard, which is a synopsis of the entire report. You can see what your overall sales performance index is. This area shows your organizational capabilities, and this shows your organizational constraints. In addition to your own sales performance index, you can also see what your benchmark is against all the other sales organizations that have participated, so you can see very clearly as a whole or within each area how your organization stack ranks up against other sales and marketing organizations. This is the quadrant report. Once we have scored the assessment from the strongly disagrees to the strongly agrees, and we've weighed the categories from most important to least important, we can now create this quadrant where the upper left items are those that we do well but have been deemed less important. The lower left quadrant are the areas that we're not doing so well, but by the way are less important. And now then the upper right quadrant is the quad green quadrant of the areas that we are doing well and are important. Lastly, we see the quad red quadrant, which are the areas that we're not doing particularly well and are important. So this is the process that you are guided through to really take all of the thoughts of your sales and marketing organization and synthesize those into the 2 or 3 areas that are most important to make an impact either in the short term or long term. Now, let me also show you another significant difference with sales baseline. Here you can see this all participants quadrant. And in the all participants quadrant, we can see that we would all agree that prospecting and qualification is the number 1 issue here on the right, and it's just barely into the quad green area. Likewise, compensation over here is in the upper left quadrant, which means it's working okay and it's less important. So here's the power of sales baseline. We can create different groups for segmentation. For example, the Chief Sales Officer or Chief Executive Officer, Senior Leadership, and Field Sales are the ones chosen for this example. This way we get greater clarity and we really test the organizational alignment that's taking place. And in this example, let's assume it's the middle of the year. We redesigned a comp plan at the end of last year and rolled it out in January. As we're taking the assessment today, our time frame are things that we want to impact in the short term, 90 to 120 days. So here's our all participants quadrant, and as you can see, the three most important areas are all in the quad green: prospecting and qualification, sales process, and staff performance. Now they're not that high, and so the likely result of this would be, how do we take these and push them up a level in the next 90 to 120 days? But because we can segment into different groups, we now can look, well, let's just see what the CEO, what their opinion is. And we can see that prospecting and qualification, staff performance, sales process are all still right here as high important areas. We come over to compensation and we see that from the CEO's view, it's working pretty well and it's less important because, again, we addressed that a few months ago. Now then, let's look at the management staff and see what their view is. The management staff looks at business management as the most important area. Upper right quadrant, the quad green, there is still room for improvement. And then follows sales process, sales management, and staff performance. Sales compensation also is up in the upper left quadrant, which says it's working pretty well and it's less important, again, because we dealt with it several months ago. Now let's do a deep dive into the sales staff and see what they think. And all of a sudden we see compensation as the number one issue, and by the way, it's a quad red, lower right quadrant. It's not working. And this may come as a surprise to people, that the salespeople may think that way, but it's a classic example if we simply looked at the all participants and said, well, we as a group think compensation is working, and we just blew right by that, we could really wind up with some problems on our hands in a few months from now. So maybe the sales staff is right, maybe they aren't. The issue is we need to have a conversation about that with them. And it may be there are misunderstandings about the compensation plan that need to be explained. It may be that some of the intricacies of the calculations are not accurate, and that can be easily fixed. It doesn't necessitate a new Six Sigma project that's going to take months and months. There may be some things that can be fixed and resolved very quickly just by creating a conversation. When we don't have this kind of segmentation data and we blow right past the fact that the sales staff have concerns about compensation, turnover can be a result of that situation. So all of a sudden we may find ourselves interviewing instead of selling, onboarding and training new staff instead of selling. We may have existing clients being underserved. We have marketing producing new leads that can't be followed up timely. It's one of those sayings where, if only I had known, I could have done something about it. And with Sales Baseline, you can. So we really follow Covey's Seek First to Understand habit, where you can get the viewpoint of different groups within the organization and really see how people are seeing the sales and marketing structure, process, and operations. You can look at new issues and new approaches together. You create your own conversations about what's working, and through this, you can all get on the same page and really be sure you're paddling in the same direction as strongly as possible. We encourage you to unleash the power of your team through the Sales Baseline. Our assessments are affordable for the individuals, as well as we can work with organizations of thousands of employees, and we guarantee the results 100%. We look forward to speaking with you at your convenience, and please contact us at info@salesbaseline.com, or you can contact me directly at 312-217-2080. Thank you.